Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. Happy Friday, everyone. This is episode 147 of the podcast. Today is May the 10th, 2024. We are in the second week of the month, so we get to roll on through with a topic and expand upon it from what we've been doing this whole month. But first, I want to cover a new topic for you. Looking at the format of the podcast, I realized there were a lot of areas of learning that books were only one part of, and I wanted to expand that. So I've brought in this week a little different aspect, and I'll talk about it in a second, but getting back into the books themselves, we're going to call this sources now, right? Learning sources. We are revisiting the $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozi. I'm renovating some of my ideas of what my offer is and how I'm approaching people. I am still looking at the NEPQ Black Book by Jeremy Miner and focusing on that, less so much on the selling book that I originally had, and more of integrating some of the questions that are happening here. Adding to our sources, this week we're looking at a video set of channels. Sabri Subi, who I've talked about on books and what have you, has a great channel on a lot of different types of strategies that you can incorporate to learn more and generate a greater impact to what you're able to produce to other people. And so that's a great resource to go ahead and check out. He's got his YouTube channel, actually pretty decent, and covers a lot of really good material. One of the people that has not gotten a great deal of traction from me is a lady. Her name is Vindy with a V, as in victory, Vindy Steinberger. And she lives here in the United States, kind of moves around all over the place. Last I checked, she was in Austin, Texas. She really covers LinkedIn and YouTube and gives you a lot of really good ideas on how to improve like your LinkedIn profile, how to make your advertising for YouTube work better for yourself. And so if you get a chance, check out her channel on YouTube, Vendy, D as in dog, and then Steinberger, Steinb as in boy, Erga. You can look it up. She's one of the few people that really has that kind of a name, and so it should be easy to find her. Looking at this week's quote, I'm going to go into the person who actually is the one who turned me on to our main topic, and that's Alan Weiss. Going back to one of his books in his consulting series, he said, consulting fees are actually dependent on two things. Number one is value provided in the perception of the buyer. And number two is the intent of the buyer and the consultant to do the right thing, to act ethically. Now, keep in mind, Alan Weiss is, he's been doing consulting for a long time. He's a PhD, lives up northeast, and he's really a great consultant, but he's also an author and a speaker and provides a lot of benefit to people. He's very expensive, as you would expect a well-known consultant to be. But, it's one of those kind of things. You get what you pay for. And so a lot of things that he's providing are really good ideas. That's why I brought him in to talk about this, which is our value-based pricing. And that is our topic that we introduced last week. We talked about 5 different types of value-based pricing. The first one being perceived value. The second one, performance-based. The third one is outcome-based. The fourth one is tiered. And the fifth one is range. And that's the one that I primarily use. This week, we're going to talk about benefits and we're going to talk about implementation of value-based pricing. And next week, we'll get into examples and cases. Looking at benefits of value-based pricing, and for those who haven't ever heard this before, it's not equating anything with time, any outputs. It's really what is the value of this entire service you're providing. And, it's not really widgets, pricing, that kind of thing. And it's certainly not an hourly or a per diem kind of pricing. It's really an overall view of looking at pricing to maximize revenue potential for you, such that value-based pricing can lead to higher revenues, specifically capturing the maximum value that customers are willing to pay. But it also enhances customer satisfaction. If you're not going back to that customer and constantly asking for more money, or saying, well, this went wrong, and so I'm going to have to charge you more, it can really make or break whether that project that you're doing is profitable for the business and the client that you're dealing with. And the other benefit really of value-based pricing is competitive advantage. If everyone else is being compared to you as, how many hours does it take? How much do you charge per hour? You're going to start losing a lot of your projects that you're trying to do if somebody else is cheaper than you. And given that the economy is in a downturn, you want to separate yourself from the rest of the competition. And so if you look at value-based pricing as differentiating a business from your competitors, specifically focusing on value rather than price alone, you're going to be what Alex Hormozy calls one of zero. It's going to be impossible to be able to compare you against somebody else. Now, those are the general benefits. There are many others, but those are the primary ones. Looking at the implementation into a business, and I got to tell you, this was a tricky one when I first rolled the value-based pricing. You're putting a lot of weight on the ability of somebody to actually produce consistently in order for you to make your pricing worthwhile for everybody. First of all, you can't necessarily always use value-based pricing for everything. When I started working with legal on a regular basis, even though I wanted to go to value-based pricing or like a managed service, one fee per month, they initially wanted all to go to hourly because that's the only way they understand. And they got the idea of retainers because they're using them themselves. But when you're implementing this, you need to segment your customers and you need to analyze what is happening. There's an understanding of the customer segments that affect their willingness to pay for different levels of value. If they can't see something being all that valuable, there might be a problem for you in order to use value-based pricing. I learned the hard way many years ago in managed services, going from break fix to managed service, where you go from by the hour to here's essentially a block every month. And if you don't use all of the quote unquote hours that the customer thinks, then they're not seeing the value trade-off. And so you can lose people very easily. You want to make sure that you are only using this kind of pricing with people that, match an ideal that would recognize that. For example, you wouldn't want to necessarily bring on a new customer or a client who's only used to doing hourly. You just want to be very, very judicious about how you do it. Now, there's also value proposition development, right? This is one of the hardest parts about marketing when a company gets involved in marketing, is they have to articulate and communicate the unique value proposition of the products and services that they provide to customers and clients. If you can't do that, it's very difficult to use value-based pricing. If you can't articulate it and they're not seeing it, that becomes a problem, okay? And then there's pricing strategy formulation. Certain things are going to be worth more than others. Like when we're dealing with what I call range pricing, it starts with how much are they spending now or how much are they losing. This is a fine dance. It's like asking, what's your budget? Nobody knows what their budget is. But if you can go through and work the process through where you can understand their thinking, you might be able to arrive at a high number that's not too high and not too low. After all, you want to create a gap between what they're doing now and what they want to do or what they should be doing. And should is in quotes, right? They define what they should be doing, not necessarily you. So your pricing strategy must reflect the value delivered, and it must resonate with your target customers. Again, if they don't understand it, it becomes very difficult to make that transition. And then the last part of the implementation you have to keep in mind is monitoring and adjustment. It's not just that one type of thing will work for everything. I know when I went into managed services, the bigger the network got, the harder it became to manage that. Same thing for marketing. The more pieces you have going on, the more difficult it becomes and the more you have to charge. And it becomes very difficult to value justify just adding stuff to it. The customer can say, hey, look, you look like you're just padding my bill. And they might be right if you're not careful. So what you want to look at is market dynamics, customer feedback, and value perception. What do they perceive as is needed for this process in order to make an actual decision of whether they just want to go with something different or if they want to keep doing what they're doing now. Next week is where we're going to put some time in, and we're going to actually give you some examples and some cases of how value-based pricing can work, how it has worked, and how it might work in a situation that is a imaginary company. So, wrapping it up, we talked about our books, we talked about our video channels from Sabri Subi and Vindy Steinberga. We also got a quote from Alan Weiss, and then we're working through value-based pricing. Next week, we'll be back with lots more material. For now, wishing you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care and have a great week.